Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Lindsay Cuyava. I'm the Artistic Director of Re-Theater. We're an online theater education and consulting company, and our whole goal is to inspire and support educators as they go out into their communities to create art that matters and to use theater as a tool to help bring together communities and heal them, both currently and after COVID-19. And so all of the world is insane right now. I don't need to tell you that. And so what we have done is we're hosting brainstorms every Wednesday with the intention of providing a space for educators both to brainstorm ideas with each other, and then we bring in experts or different folks from different parts of the industry to help lead a conversation and share some things that are working for them. So this is not a traditional class. For those of you that are new, like, we're not going to sit here and be like with a bunch of PowerPoint slides. If that's something you're interested in, we do that on Thursdays every month. And this month we're looking at creative response and community during COVID-19. So during that masterclass series is where we're actually like going into the nitty-gritty of like, hey, these are some ways that you can create art, different things like that. So, and I know quite a few of you are actually registered in that class, so it's nice to see your faces twice a week. But today, we are going to be talking all about different ways that we can be engaging our drama club and extracurricular students during this time, and how can we find ways to foster creativity, especially in spaces that are not under the parameters that traditional education classrooms have. We've had people on from talking specifically about traditional classrooms, but today we really want to focus on ways that for our students that maybe aren't in those settings can actually continue to be engaged creatively. And we're also going to be talking about ways to celebrate our students' success that either they had the opportunity to do or maybe missed out on, especially when it comes to performing, and then finding ways that we can get our students off of Zoom, because I'm sure we are all tired of Zoom, and I'm sure our students are. I would like to throw my computer at the wall, but unfortunately then I couldn't work. So someday I will never stare at a computer screen again, hopefully. But that is what we are going to be chatting about. And I am so excited to introduce Andrea Kaler. She is from Coloring Broadway, which is all about using mindfulness and through musical theater. She's going to do a much better job explaining what it is she does. And so what we're going to do during this class is this brainstorm is Andrea's going to share with us about for 10 or 15 minutes about the different ways that we can encourage mindset and mindfulness with our students, and some different resources that Coloring Broadway has, but this is not like a sales pitch for Coloring Broadway. Instead, Andrea is an expert in so many different areas, and so she is going to be chatting about that. As we go through, if you have questions, feel free to drop them over in the chat. Once we're done, with Andrea talking, I will talk a little bit about ways that we can celebrate student success. And we also will be sending out a video from another person who was not able to join us live, unfortunately, because she's throwing a cast party. So we'll send out a video. She has some tips about that as well, and then we'll open it up. So without continuing to blabber, I would love to introduce you to Andrea and have her start to share all of her magical wisdom. So hey, Andrea.
And have me start to blabber? Is the blabber baton has been passed?
It has been passed to you now.
Excellent.
Let's hear all about how we can get our students off of Zoom and be more mindful and things.
Well, having just gotten off of 8 hours of a Zoom class that I am taking for a different facet of my life, I will minimize the word salad and blabbering and keep it as succinct as I can. So as Lindsay said, my name is Andrea Kaler, and I founded Coloring Broadway about 3 years ago. But it doesn't mean that I am just a coloring crazy lady, which oftentimes is what people know me as because that's all they're familiar with. I come from a deep corporate background in instructional design and teaching and facilitation. So in 2015, when I found coloring as kind of a side thing that was super popular, I sat down and started to color, and I went, oh, my instructional design brain went off, and I went, oh, this is actually a tool that I can use to do other things with. There are the brain science parts of coloring, which have it behave as a focusing tool and that allow it to quiet other parts of our brains that go off and are thinking about different things at different times. And it provides a very non-cognitive task to serve as an underlying premise to do other things. It's why team building activities are very useful, because it's not really about the activity you're doing, it's about the connecting while you're doing this thing that's taking the barriers to connecting down because you're focused on this other thing that you're doing. I also have a background in professional coaching and really just self-awareness and that kind of background. So for me, coloring was a method or a tool to get into doing some self-reflecting. So when I married it with musical theater lyrics, I was like very happy because I saw this beautiful coming together of the transformational power of theater to find those moments in musical theater or theater itself that make you reflect on yourselves and give people another opportunity to focus on that, either in a very direct way through mindfulness activities that go along with a coloring page, or through just the absorption of it while you're coloring your favorite lyric from Wicked. So that's really why Coloring Broadway started, was the mindfulness mindset reflective piece of it. It also happens to be a fun creative tool. Again, as Lindsay said, not a pitch for Coloring Broadway by any means, but a pitch for having creativity function as a tool for access. So whether it's drawing something that goes along with your favorite lyric, whether it's, I mean, it's not about the tool, it's about the function behind it. I always say, like, you find that thing that helps you calm your brain so that you can focus on the other things, whether for me it's a boxing class or whether it's gardening and listening to something at the same time. It's being able to combine two different activities that allow you to layer. So that being said, Lindsay asked me to share some of my ideas for how to use something like coloring or some other creative activity as a way to disengage digitally, but possibly engage through digital things, and we'll work them together. What I have done in a number of different areas is I've done a community coloring night where everybody downloads one page and they all print it out and color. What also happened with that was people weren't able to download something, so they found something else that they could color. And I had a structured list of questions or kind of conversation points. Think of it as a book club, but a creative book club. So you're not necessarily talking about what you've read, but you're talking about one specific show, or you could be talking about one specific character, or you could be talking about musical theater in general. It really depends on how you want to structure that conversation, but you can use the coloring sheet or whatever it is creatively that they're working on as something that they're doing with their hands while they're talking, and they don't have to look at the screen, which I think is a really key important point right now, is actively being engaged in that on a screen takes even more effort than being engaged in a classroom, because there's a self-awareness space. I was noticing it with myself, even on the Zoom instruction that I was going through today, was I was conscious of, oh, I can't touch my face, or what do I look like? Whereas when I'm in a classroom, that's not really present. So there are different things that are going on in a new virtual classroom or a virtual environment that take different energy levels. So creating something where you can have everybody that's just kind of sitting and they don't have to look at the screen, but they can look up and engage when they want to. When I also did this, as they were coloring, I would have every, maybe 15 minutes, we'd have a progress shot. So it was really a fun way to engage people in what they are creating. It was very universally encouraging, because as people saw what each person was creating, they were excited and inspired by it. And it also fostered that connection and conversation around that. and then we kind of had a final shot at the end. So those were some of the things. Let's see, I'm like, I have my notes. So another thing that I found really useful was picking a theme, because, I mean, depending on what it is you're focused on, whether it's a topic from a musical, whether it's a specific musical itself, I like picking a theme to have them talk through, and then asking questions about the various different shows. It widens the conversation so that you're not just stuck with one show, especially if you have some people who like a specific show and maybe who don't. It allows you to expand their frames of reference and pull things from all sorts of different themes and different shows. I'm going to stop and ask if you guys have any questions for me before I just keep going.
I have a question.
Lindsay.
Okay, so I love the idea of like finding ways for like using coloring as an opportunity to just kind of disengage from the screen. When you're talking about the themes, which I think you're going to go into next, I would love to know more about how if these like themes or even like the prompts that you work with people, if those can be used in other ways other than coloring.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can be used. Let's take the first mindfulness freebie that we released right at the beginning of COVID. We did the what is a legacy quote from Hamilton. And so I went through and I listened to Hamilton completely. So it's just a great excuse to go through and listen to this thing on purpose, because hey, it's an assignment. The second thing is I listened to it with the intent of thinking about legacy. So I found that legacy was mentioned 10 specific times with the word legacy. The concepts around legacies were talked about through different characters. And so it gave me the opportunity, while I was instructional designing it, to think about that in that way, but it also can become an assignment for them to listen, but with the intent to use a different part of my educational background. I used to teach English as a second language, and I would use Friends, the TV show, to teach language. And so it wasn't just sitting back and watching Friends. It was, okay, we're going to specifically listen for this type of language, or we're going to all watch this episode, and then we're going to talk about the topics that came up around it. So those are the things that I use in going into a mindfulness exercise or a theme. You can have them listen to a song and then have conversation around what that song means with relationship to a theme. I found myself with the legacy question looking at each main character from Hamilton, and looking at how legacy showed up for them, and how that person, it became a part of their personality, or what were the steps that they took towards creating a legacy. Did it hold them back? Did it push them forward? And things around that. Did that answer your question, Lindsay?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I want to come back to that idea when we start to brainstorm, because I think that as educators sitting in here, like my brain is going crazy with how we can use that in different settings besides coloring. Although I will say that legacy project, or the legacy that you're talking about, I did that just as a human one day when I was feeling like so overwhelmed and like sad about the world and what's happening. And it was like so interesting, the different prompts that you had and how it like really helped me focus and like recenter myself, which I think is something that right now all of us, including our students, probably could use when we start.
Obviously I use coloring as the backbone of some of the things that I'm doing, but even just having those prompts, and when I was creating the activity itself, like it was a great excuse to spend 2.5 hours listening to this musical that I adore, but never give myself, quote, permission to sit down and listen to, because I've always got other things going on. So just the creation of the assignment was fun, but if I were to have been given that assignment and said, hey, listen to this and listen to it from this frame of mind and with these questions so that I can answer them, it's always just a great mind. It's like a tuning fork. It has them tune in to listening to it from a different perspective.
I love,
right?
yeah.
I mean, and some like, I am a super fan of Be More Chill, and whether you like it or not, is all up to you. I'm not attached either way, but what I like about Be More Chill is it gives so many different ways to look at that voice inside of us that just wants somebody else to tell us what to do, right? And there's so many different characters that you can look at and how that shows up in them, and how they're showing up trying to solve for that. How do I do the right thing? And each different of the friend characters has a different way of showing up. The overachiever, the gossip, the different thing. But unless you point those out purposefully and ask questions towards, tell me how this shows up in each character, people don't necessarily look at that. It's not a clear thing for them. So.
Did I miss this? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you share what the prompts were for the legacy so we have like an idea of what that looks like?
I didn't, but I can as soon as the conversation starts. I'll grab it. I'll grab it and share.
Cool.
And actually, I'll just share the whole file because they're intermixed with the file, so everybody has the file.
Wonderful.
Another thing that I like to use coloring or some sort of creative non-conscious, there's a word for it and it's escaping me right now. I like to use it while I'm listening, because what I'm finding is that the tax on my attention to pay attention, listen and watch, I get distracted, and that triggers my brain into almost shutting down and going and planning next Tuesday's lunch, right? However, when I give myself a task of doing something else that I can sit, I actually pay attention and focus better. I was watching the Jagged Little Pill performance last night, and I sat there and I was like, I just couldn't, while I was watching them and my eyes were engaged, my brain was still functioning. When I pulled out the Jagged Little Pill card and I was like, okay, I'll just color, all of a sudden I was listening to what they were saying. I was feeling. By the end of it, when they all sang, I was crying because it just allowed my thought brain to stop. It took it all into this space so that I could open my emotional self to being present with what was going on. And I think that is a big challenge right now, because there's so much stimulation that the brain parts are competing. And that was very ineloquent, but I hope it made sense.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Do you have other things? Do you want to start opening up for brainstorming?
Just, I think a few other things is, it doesn't have to be something that you do on a Zoom meeting. It can be something where you give an assignment and you talk about, and now my brainstorming brain is going as well, but where you give them, for me, it would be giving them something to color and then having everybody then post a picture of what they colored and maybe a reflection of how they felt while they colored, what they pondered on, what the answer to the questions, etc. It doesn't actually have to be in a Zoom meeting, right? It doesn't require this container for it to happen. It can be just a, hey, sit down sometime this week and do this thing, and then post a picture of what it is you created. So whether it's a coloring sheet, whether it's a diagram, whether it's dress up as your favorite character, whatever that creative outlet is, doing something, but then having that accountability tie-in for showing it off. And then also when all the pictures come together, it's super fun to see what everybody created and get to celebrate them for that. So I think that kind of comes up, that brings all of those together. I would love to hear all of the brainstorming that happens after this.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I mean, obviously, for those of you that know me or have been on a lot of our calls before. You know, a lot of our re-theater focuses specifically on musical theater. And one of the things that we so often have to focus on as educators is the actual like skill building side of musical theater and of performance. And right now, one of the things that at re-theater we're really trying to drive home is that we have the opportunity to really help our students broaden the way that they are creative and to understand this art form and more than just being on stage and receiving that applause. And so by finding these different avenues to inspire creativity and to actually carve out the time is really, really important. And so, I mean, I'm really excited to hear all the brainstorms that people come up with. And I just want to, as we go into the brainstorm, also shift this, because I think what Andrea just said about like, maybe you have them write a reflection or they dress up or all that kind of stuff is another really great way that for our students that didn't get to do their performances, that we can continue to either celebrate what the work that they did in those performances and encourage them to look at what they did as more than a performance. So if they were an ensemble member, right, and they had they had this whole character they had created, how can you celebrate that outside of the rehearsal space in a way that maybe they never would be able to on stage? So can you have like a dinner party via Zoom where everybody comes, or a lunch break as their characters, they share about their characters, or if you want to have them role play or improv as their characters, that makes my entire body want to like crumble into a ball because I hate that stuff. But students really like it. So if you're like, why is I was like that. So that is an opportunity you can consider thinking about. As far as cast parties go, or like other opportunities, I think that there's a lot of ways that we can continue to celebrate our students. So specifically with cast parties, there's been a lot of educators out there that are looking at different ways for summer school specifically, how they can get materials to students or how they can create an environment that is like even across the board. And so if you missed, what week was that? Our first week, was it our first week? I will send out the recording. We were talking about different, oh no, it was last week. Time doesn't make sense anymore. We were talking about different ways in summer school, people are putting together boxes and having students pick those boxes up. So if they're gonna do a class around Shrek, they get a box that's full of a bunch of art supplies or different creativity things that they are going to then come into Zoom meetings for a short period of time, but then be able to do this at home. And I think that that's a really cool way that we can apply that then in cast parties. So how can we think of like, how can we create these mini kits that they can take home if everybody gets like gold streamer that they can go ahead and put behind them, or maybe they have like some noisemaker or whatever your show was, some kind of theme. I just saw some of my students for a production that I worked on out here. One of the parents put together these, build your own mask. I love that. And so what one of the parents did out here, we did Bright Star, and they put together these like little like cupcake decorators for the students. And this is a fairly well-off private school, so I'm not saying this is possible everywhere, but the PTO sponsored having cupcakes delivered to the students. You could also do something like make your own, like everybody could like make hot chocolate, those like mason jar type things. So thinking of different ways that you can celebrate your students, and also ways that you could do that is like, can you have your students sing a cabaret of your show for each other, not necessarily as a performance, and how can we then like find ways to continue to have them develop and like interact with each other so that we aren't losing that connection. And that is like the one thing that these extracurricular or drama club opportunities provide, is that we don't have to be constrained by, we have to check off these certain benchmarks. So just thinking outside of the box and being creative in that way. I would love to hear from you all some ways that either we're talking about with that mindset and mindfulness, as Andrea was saying, or the actual like, how can we create community even though we're not all in the same space with our students and cultivate that creativity. Great, let's go ahead and open up and just start to, I would love to hear what you guys are doing. If you guys have questions and want to bounce ideas off of either Andrea or myself, let's go ahead and do that. So does anybody have any questions or any thoughts as we're going into this? This always makes me so angry.
Lindsay, just as a FYI, I sent you an email with the PDF of the Legacy Mindfulness thing.
Okay.
I tried to drop it into the chat directly, but I think chat permissions need to be adjusted, and then I can drop the PDF in there. And if not, I posted the link to go download the free page.
Okay, great. I'm gonna see if I can
Activity.
pull that up right now for us so that we can, I can show that to everybody. I will share my screen. So feel free to unmute yourselves or post over in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on talking and asking more questions of Andrea, which is also fine. I believe this is it. Can you all see my screen? Okay, so this is an example of one of the things that Coloring Broadway put together. So Andrea, do you want to talk through it and I'll scroll?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much I just explained what the purpose of Coloring Broadway is and why I chose this. If you scroll to the next page, this is where I was like, so I noticed that, blah, blah, blah. And here is all of the different ways that I saw that the different characters represented legacy and how it showed up for each of them, just as a way to get people thinking about it. And then if you scroll down to the next page, then I have just a quick prompt for them to start thinking about what legacy means for them and what is legacy in the first place? Is it what they create? Is it what they want to pass down? Having them think about, is legacy actually something that is important to them right now? Or are they not thinking about that? And then having them think about, I usually have 3 questions for people to ponder before they get started coloring, a couple while they color, while you're coloring, keep these thoughts in mind. And then for me, it wouldn't be a great activity unless there's actually a finish to it. So now that you've finished your piece, now that you've thought about it, if your legacy was a musical, what would it be named? Who would be the star? Making it fun for them to think about, but really having them take some time to think about what it is they're creating in their life, especially at this time in their life, if they're younger or in high school or even in college, what shows up and how they're thinking about legacies. And then also, what is one value you would like your legacy to reflect? I'm not here to have them do a big lesson on all of your life values. I want to keep it light and also enjoyable, but also kind of poke them to think about a little bit more. And then I think if you scroll down,
That's all
let's
I have.
see. Oh, that's all you have? Well, that's silly. Why isn't
I have the picture?
I was like, why aren't the pictures included? Because I forgot to send you the picture one. So, well, I will do that.
Okay, great.
So that was really where that came from.
So as Andrea sends that over, I will re-share the screen. Oh, okay. Lila, that's great. I just saw your comment. So yeah, that's so I think that with this musical, she'll show you the image in a moment. But what I really like about the way that Coloring Broadway has put these out is that those prompts can be applied to anything. So if you want to have your students, like, you can even use some of that to, like, that last part where she's like, who would write the lyrics? Like, what would it be about? You can have your kids put together a playlist. Like if their musical was going to be a jukebox musical, like what would that music look like? You can have them use this as collage work. Even if you apply this to your own, you can apply a lot of these prompts directly to your show, which would be a really cool opportunity for your students, either a current show that you're working on or one in the future, or you could even be really sneaky and be like, we're going to look at a bunch of different musicals, and then one of the musicals that you pick is the show you're doing next year, so they start to think about it in a more deeply impactful way. But looking at how can you, like, how do we dig deeper into these shows so that we do start to get our students to realize, like, theater matters, and it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said at the beginning it was using theater as a tool to bring community together and to heal. And these are the ways that I think people experience theater. It's why theater speaks to people. It's why people keep going back to the theater, but it's not necessarily a top of the mind self-awareness thought. that they have unless somebody points that out and layers it on top for them. So for me, my passion through Coloring Broadway and with the work that I want to do is being able to add that self-reflection, self-awareness moment to looking at it through the how the themes show up, but also how that shows up for the person watching and what they take from it for themselves, what was important, how they saw themselves reflected in it, if there was a learning. Like, so for me, it's really just layering on to that theater experience what the self-reflection and self-learning can be. And Lindsay, I did send that over to you, the full one instead of that one, sorry.
Let's look through that. The other thing that, as I'm pulling this up, I would love to hear from you all. Andrea has a lot of other musicals that she's working on developing these mindset things for, and she and I are actually working on some of that together. And so if it would be helpful, we could go through and quickly brainstorm some ideas of ways that you can use different musicals with your students. If that would be helpful, if you just want to put yes over in the chat, so that we know, and if there's more than like 3 or 4 people that say yes, then we'll go ahead and do that. It can either be a show, if you also have a show that you currently are working on with students or you're thinking of for next year, you want to throw it over there, we can brainstorm specifically around that. Otherwise, like, we can talk about popular musicals that kids are really interested in as well. So let's look at this. Okay, y'all can see my screen again. Yeah. Wonderful.
Nice.
Okay, so great. So here are some of the, let me see if I can.
I think that's fine. It's the, okay. So this is just the illustration that they can color. And then if you scroll up one more, almost there. I also included one where it has a prompt for them to fill it in by themselves. So again, bringing their own thoughts about something into it. So again, you don't have to use a coloring page. You can use whatever prompt about whatever show or whatever theme that you want to bring out and have them put their own words around it and then create something. I think I saw in the chat, it says, is it Mylene? We have them choose a pick of a painting from a small group that they feel that they relate to, and then build using their experiences to create a musical proposal with the problem they must solve. That's brilliant. It's having them put themselves into that situation. So that's really what my purpose was in creating a prompt like this in the coloring page, is having them put themselves in it and have to think through it.
I think that's really fantastic. I love that. Okay, let's open it up. I would love to hear from you guys what you are doing, either what you're doing with your students right now, and sharing out, like, how are you engaging your students, like, in a non-structured education setting, or like what you are hoping to do but need some feedback on. Does anybody want to share?
I'll share. I mean, I just have a question. Yay! I love that, and the PDF is great. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So I'd love to know if people have other suggestions in terms of the coloring. I think is brilliant. I'm looking for ways to have the students not be staring at the screen, but still be in the Zoom meeting, right? So the idea of like, okay, and now you're going to take this and leave for an hour and a half is so not okay to me. So I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm still monitoring you. I'm still here for Q&A, whatever you need. I love the idea of doing the progress shot, stuff like that. Does anyone have suggestions for other activities besides, so far I have, like, listened to 4 different types of music, draw each thing that you think you're hearing and share. But if anyone has other ideas for that, I think it's great, because it's so important right now to make sure that they're not just staring at you and each other and this overstimulation for hours,
Mm-hmm.
I actually tried something new yesterday with my kids, and I learned about the breakout rooms on Zoom, which was a game changer for me. And I broke them out randomly, so it was just completely random each time, actually. and I would give them a scene suggestion. It was from Drama Notebook, like crazy scene scenarios, and it had 3 different things. Like, your scene must include a hamburger, a penguin, and the line, "It's getting cold out here." And so I would tell them that, I'd put it in the message, and I'd leave them, and I gave them like 5 to 10 minutes. Started with 5, then they wanted more time. But they went and got like costumes and props and like different things, and were like, they positioned their cameras so that they could like be in different positions. One kid was a human vacuum. It was really interesting. And they loved it. They were having so much fun. There were sword fights. They were figuring out like who's on what side of which screen, and it was really fun.
That's so cool. Something great for the breakout rooms too is scavenger hunt. I don't know if you all have been doing that with your students, but they love that too. Like, they run for 60 seconds and come back with these 5 items that you screen share, and then you can put them in their breakout rooms to share all the items, but then also come up with like a 30-second improv selling commercial for one of the items. Works really cute too.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've done with students, not necessarily during COVID, but in the past, because I do a lot of teaching online, and since a lot of my stuff is movement-based, is I will have give a prompt of in a song specifically, and having them create a story to a refrain of a song, and having them, and I do this in the classroom when I'm actually able to be there live with them. I have them face the outside of a wall so that they can't see anybody else, and it gives them the permission to start to do that work. You could do the same thing on Zoom, and which is what I have done, is have them face away from the Zoom, or tilt their camera down, and that gives them that break, but it also allows them to do that exploration. So whether you want to use Tableau as the opportunity for them to do that, one of the things that I like to do as far as character study goes, which you can do either because of a show you're working on or just in general, is having them come up with their main character pose. So somebody is going to paint a portrait of them, what would be the tableau that they would create that says the most about them, and then having them go through the different emotions and coming up with a tableau for each of those. So 8 different emotions, and then finally how I wheedle that down is them picking out the 3 that are the most definitive, and then coming back on the camera and having them each show that. So say okay, do your character pose, do your first other pose. They can see each other, so it does get rid of that Zoom fatigue a little bit too. Mylene has some awesome ideas. Yeah, Mylene, actually, so next month, or no, July, we're going to do a whole series around creating a scene using only lyrics, or just only songs. And I think that's such a fun idea that you totally can do. Have you used that in your classroom? It seems like you love dance, because you also mentioned that 5, 6, 7, 8 Broadway dance is opening up movement discussions, and I love that too.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to pop in as a dancer myself. I think 5, 6, 7 Broadway is brilliant. Joseph is an amazing human, and he just has so much fun. It's a great way to get people moving. He's got some stuff available on YouTube. You can leverage that. They can do it by themselves, and then you could actually have them use that as inspiration to create their own movement, right? Their own choreography. And then you could actually have them, I say actually a lot, you could have them teach each other the choreography through Zoom.
Yeah, that's super
So that
fun.
by the end you could have everybody doing the same 24 or 48 counts that each of them have choreographed a little piece of.
That's really
Some
fun.
of them are even using that movement and creating little TikToks to share with their other friends too.
Stop with the TikToks.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that's so fun.
We use the create a scene with nothing but lyrics as a segue to things like the Mamma Mia's, that kind of thing. And so that way they have an idea of how to do it. It takes a little bit more time, and it takes a little more patience, but you give them a general idea, and you give them is it a romance? You give them a genre, and then they have to go with it, and then they go and they'll go find lyrics to make whatever needs to happen. And then we talk about how there are sometimes songs that you say the things you want to say, but they're not in the emotion or the way that you want them to happen. Go around those kind of things. And so then we talk about voice and diction and analyzing it for subtext and things.
Oh my gosh, I totally love that. And so kind of, are you teaching them how they would create their own like jukebox musical type thing potentially? Is that kind of what you mean with the segue to like Mamma Mia?
Yeah.
That is really, really fun.
I'm an art, theater, and dance teacher. So I have and I'm a inclusion English and inclusion math teacher. So we find ways to incorporate it all.
Holy cow.
Wow.
That's incredible. Mylene, where are you located?
In Texas.
In Texas? Oh, very fun. That's so cool. You guys have like such cool, awesome programs down there because y'all have some more money than a lot of other places.
I actually run a zero budget program.
What?
Everything is either donated, fundraised, or whatever, but I get $0. So
Are you at a traditional high school?
I'm at a public school, yeah.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
It's an accelerated high school. Most of the kids graduate with an associate's degree.
Wow.
About 90% of them, or a cosmetology license. So it lends itself that we're looking for thinkers and thinking outside of the box, and we push that.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of that. Does anybody else have anything that they're doing that is working to get their students off of the screen, or that's engaging them in any kind of way?
It's not really getting off of the screen technically, but it's getting off of Zoom. But I do short films. I teach short film or film study, and I give projects only to a few of my kids. They're on an independent study, and I thought maybe I would start doing that with all of my kids. Like, they all have a phone. Well, most of them have phones that you can do whatever you want on iMovie. You can create really great films, right? And so I figured that could be a great way of doing it. And then we can get together and we can do a screen share and show each other our films and all that. So that was a thought that I had. It's still a lot of screen time, but it's just kind of, it's so funny, last few years we've been working so hard at being like, you screenagers, get off your phones, get off your computers, get outside. And now we're forcing them to be on their computers and their phones all the time. It's just so awkward and weird. But yeah, so that's my thought. Maybe a little more in the film industry world right now.
Our teacher agency for Texas has a 24-hour film challenge every year, and they give them they have to pick 5 lines from like 15 lines that they must include in their film, and 3 props that they must include, and then they pick a genre, and like the genre is given to them. So then they have 24 hours to create it, and they work in teams of like 3 to 5 people to create a film that has a beginning, middle, and end. They have to do an intro and an ending part, and they have to put like all their cast members, and they have to put underlying music on it. And with that, they use Filmora, which is not the end all be all, but they use Filmora, and Filmora has some great little quick tips that they can use. And you'll find that some of them will just use iMovie or whatever is convenient for them. But they start having discussions about what needs to be actually included in a script. And sometimes less is more, and more is more.
Well, yeah, and you can also tie into some of the coloring and the artwork where you do storyboarding and put that all up beforehand. You do it in process, where you start with the storyboard and then you get up to your script. I mean, all of that. So definitely.
I think the challenge around like the screenagers and the screen time and all of that is making the screen time that they have purposeful. In what I was going through today, I'm doing a change management for my other part of my life, doing a change management certification class, and you could tell that they were switching from instructor-led in-class training to a virtual-led environment. And what I was noticing was the things that they had to adjust for a virtual-led class versus a instructor-led class, and just the things that you take for granted when you're in a classroom and you can see and you can kind of take the temperature of where the students are and how they're interacting, and how purposeful you have to be with your language. Like he was having us, we have a workbook to follow along with, but he wasn't actually cueing us to look at it, but he was picking it up, but we didn't see that he was picking it up. So we were like, hey, wait, where are you at? So some of these shifting some techniques like that as you're instructing or working with them online will actually manage some of the stress level of following along on a Zoom meeting. And then of course, shifting like how they're interacting and what they're doing. And it's not just screen time being talked at versus like what you were talking about with creating the videos, and they're working with their screens and creating things on them, but not just on them for the sake of, you know, passive enjoyment.
I love that. And Marlene, you're putting some like really awesome ideas over in the chat as well.
Yes.
With the guided meditation, listening to create images, 24-hour film challenge, tableau of emotions. I love all of these things.
Mylene, thank you for saying guided meditation, because that's kind of a little like reminder that that's what Lindsay and I need to start working on.
Yes.
it's in the works.
Awesome. Anybody else doing anything that you found success either with this idea of getting our students more off the screen, or of how we can celebrate what our students have already done and maybe didn't get to have the recognition or the opportunity to share? Oh, Shannon, would you share that with the group?
So it was something that my boss wanted us to do to keep like our social media presence alive. So each Tuesday at noon, we've done a quarantine challenge, kind of a play on words. And so like the first week was a karaoke challenge, and it's me and one other instructor, and he posted a video of him singing Friend Like Me. And he's like, I challenge you to create music at home. And we actually had a lot of students like using the a cappella app where they were like singing multiple parts or like playing and singing. And it was really cool. I did one where I rewrote the 12 days of Christmas to the 12 days of quarantine, and then like showed them the template. It was like, create your own parody of quarantine. I got a couple of responses on that one. I read a couple of fractured fairy tale books, and then was like, hey, create your own fractured fairy tale, but just like us doing a challenge and then them kind of playing off, and then they'd send us videos and we'd feature it on our social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had quite a bit of feedback. Our last one we're doing is a performathon, and we're challenging them to send in videos of them performing, either playing an instrument or singing or showing visual art. And then I'm going to compile them all to make one long video to end our quarantine challenging. But it's the kids, especially the younger kids, actually have had a lot of fun with it. The teens are like, I don't really care to participate, but the younger ones have loved it.
That's brilliant. Mylene, I noticed that you put in bad lip reading. And I love that, because what I was thinking while Shannon was talking about, I used to use in some of my classrooms, as we would use back in the using friends part, but we would use clips of a scene. And then I would have my non-native English speaking students, they would actually practice the scene as written, so that they were trying to do the actual words. But a way to flip that is to give them scenes that are unfamiliar to them from a show of some sort, and have them write the script of what's actually going on, and then act it out or put their words and sounds over it, so that they're mapping back and forth to what's going on in the scene, which is of course obviously not what actually went on in the scene. Right. And then maybe showing them the scene as it was originally intended.
Yeah, that's really fun too. Anybody else? I would love to hear from some of you that, so a lot of you had shows canceled, yes, or had to be postponed. Have you guys done anything to help your students like celebrate the work that they've done? Like, have you done online cast parties? Have you done like small cabarets? I know, Harrison, you were in a brainstorm with us last month where Booktix was talking to you about ideas of doing a cabaret. Have you guys done any of that kind of stuff?
Not yet. We're set for the 4th of June to we're turning it into our senior recognition night, and so the seniors are going to sing, and then some of our other younger classmen will be able to perform a little bit if we have some time. But we're going to do all pre-recorded things, and then we're going to have a Zoom meeting that I'm going to stream live and do like some interviews with those kiddos, with the seniors that are going out. I've tried, like, on the 23rd, I guess it was the week of the 23rd of April, I threw a party for Shakespeare, thinking like, oh, that'd be really fun. And I had like an okay turnout with my kids. I've been trying to do, things like that on Zoom, but they're so overwhelmed with everything else. I'm just not getting the, this is an extracurricular for them right now. And they're like, I got to get my homework stuff because we're in full blown like online school and kids got to do everything. And so it's just been weird, and then when we do get on, sometimes it ends up like you say, Lindsay, so how's everyone doing? And then crickets, it's like, I was like, oh, I don't know how to react to each other if I can't touch you or be theater-like and hang all over you, right? And so, but we're trying. Every Friday I have a drama club meeting, and we started out with 3, and now we have like 7 that show up. So that's, out of what,
Awesome.
35, 40 kids. So it's getting there, but yeah.
Well, I think that cabaret sounds really cool that you're putting together.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about it. Or even, I mean, I know I'm not one of your students or families, but I also would love to see how it goes. Because I think that can be something in the future that might be a way that we can actually do some of our stuff and honor our kids.
Yeah, one of the cool things is I can send you the link once we get it all set up, and
Love that.
Once we get it like recorded, we can send it out afterwards or however it works out. I'm still doing all that research on how I do the streaming and all that, so I'm working on that too. But once I get that all set up, I'll send you a link, and if you wanted to post it to some others, that's totally fine, because it's open. It's the internet. Anyone can watch it if we let them. So
Right.
it's awesome that way.
Yeah, I think that would be great, especially because right now, like, we have to learn from each other. Like, everything is so quickly evolving. And tomorrow in our devising class that we have, we're going to talk about that a lot, is like how right now we have to all work together. Sometimes we get very like proprietary over like our work and what we do as artists, which totally makes sense. But right now is the time to be like, everybody, here's a lifer after you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love that, Harrison. So there's a bunch of people that popped up over on the side. Hold on. Oh, Mylene, do you want to, or somebody unmuted themselves? No, maybe not. Mylene, can you share more about the pantomime and Zoom? And then also what you mean with the taking their name off thing?
So like so I'll start with the Reader's Theater. When they're reading the script and whatnot, if they're not in the scene, they're showing their picture, like I'm showing my picture right now, or their name, and then they become live when they or we've shared a certain picture with them that they put so that it looks like, hey, this is our logo and stuff. So it only shows basically the people that are in the scene talking at the same time. And that way they have exits and entrances, and some of them change their lighting between things, and some of them throw things and things like that. So they have entrances and exits. The pantomime is so that they know they're stuck in their box already, their Zoom box. And so they use it as their way of pulling things in. And then if they need to pass things off, they try and push it to the next box, So like they'll try and push like a box above them, they'll take a physical like gift box and they'll try and push it above them, and the person above them will have to pull something upward. And so it teaches them about action and reaction.
That's cool.
So,
That's so fun.
That's really awesome. I love that.
Harrison, one of the things you were talking about the crickets, the ask a question in crickets, something they used today in my class was what he called a cascade chat, where he asked a question and then he had everybody type their answer into the chat box, but not press return yet until he gave the 1, 2, 3, everybody hit return. And then all of a sudden 15 things fell into the chat. And then he was able to talk to, because he would ask a specific question and then everybody answered all at the same time. And now there was a better discussion around it because now everybody had an answer. And he was able to interact that way.
That's a really cool thing, Andrea.
I really liked that functionality.
Mm-hmm.
I tried something new just recently, and I mean, I do this when it was live, but now that we're all remotely doing things, I didn't think about journal writing and thoughts for the day until I got brought up in one of my Drama Teacher Academy webinars that we were talking. And so we pre-send them a thought for the day. It could be a quote or whatever, and then they journal write or they write their response, and it's a discussion that leads into whatever we're going to talk about that day. And but it could be something more controversial. It could be something, and then that gives them the opportunity to voice or not voice. But they've had some pre-thought coming into it, and it's off screen, that pre-thought, and their brains are already active.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really cool idea.
Yep. Get them thinking before they are actually on screen and you ask them a question, and now they have something they've already been thinking about so they can respond.
Jacqueline has a question for Mylene. So she's talking the Zoom box. So she says, don't people show up in different configurations on our screen? So how do you know who is above or below?
Welcome to improv. Yeah, they figured out ways where like they can unjoin the Zoom and rejoin the Zoom, so it changes their order that they appear in the Zoom. Some of them love that, some of them don't like it, but if not, they have to figure out how to deal with what they've been dealt with on that stuff. And like sometimes we'll just say we're limited to these particular objects so that no one feels like they're having to scramble or whatever. So it's like we'll have like a list of 5 objects that they got to go collect before they come on Zoom that day. And it'll be something like a kitchen utensil or, a fork. And we all know they have a fork. So it's things that aren't so stressful that they're like, I don't know where I'm going to get that.
Also, if you hide non-video participants, if you hide them, then as soon as they turn their video off, when they put it back on, they'll be the next one in the row to the left. So you can organize it from left to right on your screen just by setting that. So instead of leaving the entire meeting, they just turn their video off and on. And if you do it in the beginning where all their videos are off, then all of them will have the same screen.
Interesting. New tips and tricks. Yes.
I love this. Lila had a question or a comment, and now I have to find it because it was really great. Oh, so Lila was talking about how they went and just started working on The Show Must Go Online. I don't know if you can unmute yourself or if you're still putting little kiddos to bed. But if anybody else done The Show Must Go Online and looked at doing any of the Zoom musicals?
I'm doing it.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the process of launching it. It's great. Oh, yay, you're there. Go.
Yeah, I did it.
You did it too?
Yeah. My production has been like really, really popular and been like put all over the media. So that's, I don't know. Rachel, have you seen it?
No, tell me more. This is so exciting. Congrats.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was just one of the first ones to get it done. And so it was like a pretty polished version. So the authors grabbed it and started to like post that everywhere. So it was like in American Theater Magazine yesterday, there was an article about it. And It's I did it in a way where the kids just had individual sessions with me to work on their pieces, and then I edited everything together. So they actually didn't interact with each other at all through the process, and they didn't see each other's scenes until we had a viewing party at the end. So it didn't serve the purpose that a lot of people want, which is to have something more social and communal for them to work on. But it did turn out a pretty good product. And I had to learn how to use Final Cut Pro and edit and everything really quickly. So yeah, there's a lot on the beat. Sorry, my daughters.
No, the joy of being at home is great.
Yeah. But the Beat by Beat Press website and the Drama Teacher Hub and all those places have a lot of threads about it. But it worked. I mean, it worked for me, and I'm probably going to do more things like that. I'm more comfortable having a script to work with than experimenting with all of this Zoom and improv, and I mean, I'm going to have to learn how to do that, but it's been interesting to hear you all talk about it, because I'm gradually accepting this as my next step.
Hey, so I was able to move. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
This is Layla, watching all the way from Morocco, Africa.
Wow.
Jacqueline, I saw it. It's really neat. Very well done.
Thank you.
And my students watched it, and I was like, here's an example for you guys. So we're in the process of editing now, and it's a headache, but we'll get there. We're premiering on Sunday, 24th at 4 GMT. So crossing fingers for that. But it was really nice. It was such a great experience to have the kids go through that, filming themselves and having to do 1,000 takes and just learning how to audition. This is how it's gonna go in the future. But unlike you, I actually had them on Zoom just twice. The first one was chaotic. I of course didn't have them sing together at the same time, but I wanted them to just hear each other and understand the direction of the play. And then the second time I did a better management of the Zoom, and it went much better. So I just had to mute everybody, and then they each had to do their parts. No interruption. We had just 40 minutes anyway, so we just had no interruptions, and they were able to see each other and learn from each other. And that was about it. And then they all had to send all their videos. And then, I had 30 minutes for 2 or 3 weeks. I had 30 minutes per kid, just helping them through their lines and all. The thing is, I have children. Most of them are non-English speakers. So they're, it's like their third language. And it was a little bit challenging, but I also have I would say a third or so who are native English speakers. So they kind of bring everybody up when it comes to the language. And so it was interesting. It's an interesting mix of children and cultures, different cultures. So we'll see how it's going to go. But it's editing. I'm focused on editing and montage now.
Oh, are you doing the finale with choir version?
Yes.
Or solos?
No, well, we're going to start with solos and then the finale with the choir, with the ensemble. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're going to have maybe a few kids, 2 or 3 at the beginning who sing solos, and then they just get together.
Great. Are you going to post it on the Beat by Beat Press or share where you're premiering it?
Well, it's going to be shared on Crescendo Musical Theater. That's the name of our production and our company. And I think Beat by Beat, they're going to share it. I guess they've been sharing all the productions. So
yeah, cool.
What was the biggest challenge for you guys when you were going through it?
Editing. I mean, choosing to try to edit together 20 voices, which I wasn't going to do. I was going to just divide it into solos. And then when I started bringing each kid's video into the editing thing and like listening to them one at a time build this ensemble sound, I just was like, oh, like the idea of them kind of singing together even though they were apart. And then I just was like, okay, I'll learn how to do this. And it's all about lining it up perfectly with the accompaniment. But then even once you do that, they didn't have a music director, and I didn't really give them any music rehearsals. I just gave them the recording to learn from. So their cutoffs aren't together, and their rhythms sometimes are whatever they want them to be. And so I like had to go in and like be like, whose voice is standing out there, and like listen through and figure out, and then like mute them at a certain point. And so it was like a lot of extra time to control the final product. But once I realized I could do that, I kind of got obsessed with it and was like, okay, I'm gonna get this like as tight as I can. And there were definitely places where kids were making up their own pitches, and I just like brought their volume down for those parts. And because I just like most of them sounded great, and so in the end it was good. But then even there were some lyrics that were hard to understand, so I made a finale only video and I put captions on it. So that is sort of the definitive finale, and then there's the finale that's tagged on at the end of the show that doesn't have captions. But I have the luxury of time because I'm not a public school teacher or anything. This is just my own studio. So I just chose to do this. We weren't even in the middle of a session or anything. We had already done our show the week before everything shut down. So it was like, let's give it a try and like experiment. So unfortunately it went so well that now I feel like pressure to do more and figure out what I need to do next.
I mean, Mylene just shared the article in American Theater
Oh, wow.
about you. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like, who knew I would get pandemic famous? I mean, it wasn't what I set out to do. But
So you're a pandemic profiteer.
yeah, well, I didn't. Yes, loosely defined profiteer.
I kid.
I didn't even charge the kids anything to be part of this initial thing, or anything. But it's been cool to be able to help other people with their productions, and like I'm sure there'll be a lot of really, really great versions of this coming out. There are more than 500 companies that have licensed this show so far.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how many have actually finished it yet. Maybe like 25.
I just want to give a huge shout out to all of the teachers who are learning all of the new skills necessary to put all of this stuff online, because what you guys are doing is not an easy job, and the people who don't understand the amount of change you guys are going through to learn all of these new skills is just super big. And I just want to acknowledge all the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I echo that. You guys don't get as much credit as you should. We should be clapping for you all at 7 p.m. too.
Right?
Yeah, you guys are doing so much. And how cool, Jacqueline, that you're here to tell us all about it.
Yeah, sorry I was like not there for a while. I mean, I was listening, but I was walking around and doing other things too, so.
That's awesome. And Layla, I would love if you want to share with us when you get it done. Like, I would love to share that out if you want through our.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it's gonna be, but I'll share it with you anyway.
We were all learning new things, so.
Should I just share it by email, or how do I share it with you?
Yeah, if you want to just, you can reply to any of the emails that you've gotten from Re-Theater, and it goes right to me. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll do.
That would be awesome. And then we can put it on our social media or through our email and send it out to the people that signed up for this brainstorm. So yeah.
That's sweet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so Shannon had two things. First, Shannon said that Drama Notebook has some really great resources, $10 a month, all kinds of acting class, different stuff, which is so true. Love Drama Notebook. Their stuff is like freaking wonderful, especially when it comes to like those ideas. But also Shannon, so okay, so you were talking, so you said in the chat that you finished your team production of Cinderella the day before everything started to shut down. They missed out on their cast party, which is so minimal considering others lost their entire show. But you're trying to figure out if doing a virtual cast party is worth it or just waiting until social distancing is lifted. Does anybody have any like thoughts on that? Like what you guys think as far as that goes?
I think it's super worth it. I think that everybody is just, you know, we're all really hopeful for if and when this is happening, but also having some sort of clarity and closure is really great. For our Shrek Junior cast party, I like found printables online for those who can afford it and have a printer. And they printed little hats with little ogre ears, and they wore their little hat for the cast party. And it was just a really nice closure piece for everyone, as opposed to like waiting for, you know, and of course, like, oh, if and when we can all meet up, we'll do it again. But at least they sort of have that send off. And additionally, and I mean, I know a lot of people have already broken the news, but a way in terms of like getting kids to keep coming back and showing up to the rehearsals, like I know someone was mentioning like not like low amounts of participation. I've been bringing in people just that I know through the industry who've been amazing enough to volunteer to do Q&As with my kids. And that has really inspired them, like to go from, you know, practicing the show and then thinking like, well, why do I need to show up after this? It's not happening anyway. And to go back to sort of like the foundation and skills that all of you were talking about, I think it was really nice for them to talk to people like, wait, you've been on what Broadway tour? And wait, what do you mean? What is your job again? And I've been having guest artists come to our rehearsals, which I think is so great. And at this time, I think everyone is so willing to share, you know, so having like a surprise guest at the party could be really awesome.
And somebody had shared last week, I believe, or I don't remember when, that some people are doing cameos. The app where you can get, you can have people, like you can pay like somewhere between like 30 and 100 or how many dollars, and they'll like do a video. I know one of my clients, she had to cancel her production of Godspell, and so she had Telly Long. I think that's how you say his last name. I apologize if it's wrong. But he did like a 2 or 3 minute video for the kids, and he sang Beautiful City, which was their all favorite song, and just like wished them well. And that's a really cool thing that if you are looking to do like a celebration or something, and even maybe consider changing the name of it, Shannon, like it could be like, I don't know, a celebration as opposed to the cast party. And then when that comes, you can like blow it out and be awesome that way for sure. Oh, Mylene has a really cool idea that I think we should talk about in a second for sure. Does anybody else have any thoughts about doing cast parties or anything like that online? Cool. So Mylene, that's a really cool idea that they hide. So she hides codes in her Zoom to access readings and shows in theater like Patrick Stewart's sonnets. How do you do that, Mylene?
So in our Google Classroom, they have to enter the code, and we've already linked everything there, so it's not like they're going to things that we don't want them to see, but they have to type in the code to see the next thing. And so they'll search our whole Zoom, but they have to be in our Zoom and interacting with us in order to hear or see the clues. It's kind of like escape room Zooming.
Oh. So okay, can you like give an example of that? Because I'm a little confused, like how you would do that in the thing.
So like in the background, I might have my like little William Shakespeare holding the sonnet, but the code is not quite the right sonnet number or something like that. Or I might have like a circle, square, triangle, blah, blah, blah. And somewhere else on my Zoom later on, you have to match up the circle, square, triangle with something else. And it gives you numbers that associate it in the correct order. So it keeps them on the Zoom the whole time when I need them on the Zoom, but they have to pay attention enough to go back and look at it.
That is really cool. I love that.
So it's kind of like a treat or reward for them when they get to the other stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem. There's also, I don't know if you've seen it, but I can't pull up the source right now, but there is a theater group that is putting a challenge out every week, and they'll give like one passage. So they may give like, I'm just gonna pull it random, the Romeo and Juliet passage, and then several people will chime in and do their interpretation of that same scene over and over and over and over, and so that they have a collage of all those scenes.
Oh yeah, I've seen some people doing that. Well, I can't remember the group either. Something was Shakespeare and social distancing, I feel like, right? That's the
Nice.
channel name.
Yes.
It's really cool. Awesome. Well, I just want to be mindful, because we're almost at the end of our time, that if anybody has any last thoughts or anything like that that you want to share out.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I had my dates mixed up and actually thought this was the day talking about summer programming online. Was that one recorded, and is there any
Yes.
way to
Yes.
watch
Sorry,
it?
we changed it. We had two. It's not exciting. Yes, I apologize that's what that mix up happened. I will send that to you. It'll come out. So in the email that you'll get as a response, we'll include a link to a YouTube playlist that has the other two from this month as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. So same thing, Marlene. And so that's actually a really great segue. So we are so excited to be doing these brainstorms with you guys. And normally these brainstorms happen over in our educator community, which is called Spotlight. And so over there, usually twice a month or every week during the month, obviously. So every week we have these brainstorms, and they're just for our educators in there. But what we're doing right now through a sponsorship with BookTix is we're opening up these brainstorms to any educators. And so within the community, you get access to all of our previous masterclasses, brainstorms, tech talks, all of that. And that community also is open to any educator who wants to join for free, again, because of the sponsorship through BookTix. So if you're interested in any of the sessions, like if you want more than just like this last month, I totally welcome you to come join us. I'll put the link over there, because we probably have over like 150 hours of different brainstorms and masterclasses. Because ReTheater, our entire focus is on using theater for community and social impact. Like a lot of our stuff is, you're not going to find a lot of like, this is how to teach different acting techniques and that kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot more of how do you deeply engage your community and your students through theater. We also do have quite a few classes like around like the different topics that are really hot right now in the industry, like casting practices, race and equity on stage, intimacy directing, that kind of stuff. So I'll put it over there, but you will all receive a link just for signing up for this brainstorm to all of our brainstorms from this month. So yeah, we would love to have you guys come join us over there. Otherwise, keep coming to our brainstorms, because it's super fun getting to interact with all of you. Andrea, how can people find out more about Coloring Broadway?
Well, we're obviously on the Instagrams at Coloring Broadway, or at online at www.coloringbroadway.com, because branding is a good thing. I'm Andrea at Coloring Broadway, or Instagrams. All things come to me, so I will respond when you reach out. So yeah, and I'm happy to, like, if you have an idea for a mindfulness activity or a request for one, we're working on ones moving forward. So if there's one that's pertinent, we can absolutely work on those first. So I like the input of a little bit of direction rather than just what I feel called to. It's nice to know what other people are looking for as well.
And Andrea, do you guys have some free ones?
Oh yes.
Okay.
I love how you ask questions you know the answer to. Yes. So on the shop, there are 4, I think there are 4 freebies right now. If they're not, there's only 3, but there'll be 4 soon. There's the Legacy one. There's the Fearless Squad one. We did some illustrations with the Fearless Squad and Mandy Gonzalez. And so we did a mindfulness activity around that and shared that out. And then the last one was I Love Play rehearsal from Be More Chill.
And
Because I was ruminating on it and thinking. And so that's what I did.
And they all have like the guided prompts and all that with them as well, right? Yeah. Okay. Would you be able to throw that over in the chat?
Yep. I sure will do that right now.
Thank you.
Which apparently necessitated some sort of Southern voice right now.
Yeah, so check that out. Also, Andrea is, she's a part of so many things at Re Theater, but she's also a part of our Musical of the Month Club. And next week, we are, so we've been looking at mental health and musical theater all month over there. It is not like a teacher education specific thing. It's like people who love musical theater and want to look at how it can change the world. So we do coloring things over there every month. And this month, if you join the group, there's a discount code, and we're looking at Dear Evan Hansen. You get a Dear Evan Hansen little color thing. That was
that's what we'll be working on next.
So you can come over there and join us. I will put that link over if you want to come join. It's free. It's just like through our Re Theater page. So yeah. Other than that, I just want to also invite you all, if you want to know more about Re Theater, because I know there's quite a few new people in here, I think, or maybe you're not and I just haven't seen you in one of these before. You can just go to our website, which is retheaterco.com. You can find out a lot more about like what we do and the different things we offer. I mentioned it a few times, or it came up. We're doing a 4-part series this month, also called Creative Response and Community. It's on Thursdays. That is a masterclass series. This week we're looking at devising, and our instructor this week is Kate Yeager. She's a Seattle-based artist, and she does devising specifically with young people, and she has a really interesting, unique process that she uses. Again, BookTix is just amazing, and they sponsored all of our stuff for the month of May, so that is also on a pay-what-you-can or free basis. I'm going to put the link over in the chat. Andrea, your stuff, it came privately to me, not to the whole
shizzle. I will fix that.
If you want to go ahead and join us over there, we would absolutely love that. And as always, Re Theater, we're here to help support you all. If there's ever anything that we can do or any topics or subjects that you guys want to see covered, please feel free to reach out to me directly at any point in time. We'll be announcing our June programming next week. And so if you come into the brainstorm, we'll announce what those brainstorms look like, as well as our masterclass series. But it is all going to be around how to create a culturally responsive program. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But I would love to see you guys. If you have questions, feel free to stick around. Also, if this was helpful to you and you want to support future programming like this, we always are looking for folks that are willing to donate. We're keeping all of our staff on during all this craziness. But honestly, we're just so genuinely happy you decided to join us. There's never any pressure. So if you want to look over in the chat, Andrea put a few links for you guys over there of these free resources. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining. And we will send out this replay, and we'll hopefully see y'all soon. So bye.
Bye.